Welcome to Fast Fuel, your bite-sized sports nutrition podcast designed to help you get the latest science, news and insights from the world of performance nutrition in 20 minutes or less, brought to you by Get Pro Professional. I'm your host, James Morehen, and I have over 10 years experience working in professional and elite sport, from sports like rugby, football and boxing, but also endurance athletes. Each episode, we will be joined by a special guest working at the forefront of elite sport or academia to get their nuggets of knowledge on their own specialist area of sports or sports nutrition. From learning how to fuel and support teams through major tournaments, to starting out as a new sports nutritionist and hearing the latest on protein science and research, we have you covered here on Fast Fuel. So sit back, relax and get ready to learn from the best of the best in the world of sports nutrition. Welcome to Fast Fuel, let's go. Today we're joined by Mike Naylor, Head of Performance Nutrition at the UK Sports Institute, to talk about nutrition at major tournaments. Mike, do you want to tell our listeners a bit more about yourself and your role?
Thank you. Yes, I'm a sports nutritionist, been a sports nutritionist for nearly 20 years, working with a lot of different sports, football, rugby, Olympic sports, supported athletes for around 20 different major events, tournaments. So really excited to explore it with you today. Yeah, gold. So now, before we dive into today's topic, nutrition at major tournaments, we always ask each guest 3 get-to-know-you questions, so no pressure. What is your favourite sporting moment of all time? Oh, I've got so many favourite sporting moments and feel so privileged to be involved in some moments which were just so magical, emotional, really enjoyable. So I think back to the penalty shootout in my first World Cup with England football in Russia against Colombia, which was just an absolute incredible moment. And being able to be on the pitch after, I just never thought I'd experience anything like that in my life. My dream was to be the nutritionist for Southend United. So when you're in a position like that, it was just absolutely incredible. Amazing experiences in the Olympic world, Paralympic world as well. Seeing Liz Johnson win gold in Beijing was an incredible moment for me as well. So many magical moments.
Yeah, that's class. Look, you're a performance nutritionist, so we have to ask, what is a meal that you could not live without?
One I couldn't live without. I think I'm quite basic with my eating. Like most days I'll have a lot of different vegetables, sweet potato and fish. It sounds really basic, really, nutritional, which is probably the sort of meal I couldn't live without because I have it so frequent. I love the taste of it. I think my partner gets really bored as I'm cooking the same meals a lot of the time, but just trying to add these little variations to it. But if I couldn't live without it, it would be that.
Nice. And is it fish that you're catching at your fishery?
All the fish from my fishery are catch and release, and we look after those fish in an absolute incredible way. But, I love my line caught fish, and I am really fussy about the fish, the ingredients, how it's sourced and everything like that. So, for me, it's got to be really high quality and sustainable and really tasty and cooked really well as well.
Yeah, nice. What you wanted to be as a child when you grew up? So we've all got kind of our dreams and ambitions. What was yours?
Growing up, I took playground football so seriously. I've talked about it on a few podcasts before, and I always wanted to be a football player. As I started getting older and realised that I wasn't good enough to do that, I had different things like wanting to be in the fire brigades, all of these different things. But then when I went to university and started learning more about nutrition and realised you could do that, that's what I'm going after. So I felt quite luckily quite early to have an understanding of what I wanted to go after and what I wanted to be. Yeah,
that's gold. Now your job, your roles at the moment, you might find this a bit cringy when I say this, but I always looked up to you as a person working in performance nutrition and in some of the best roles in our country. A lot of those roles that you do are major tournament based. And obviously today we're going to talk about major tournaments. So in terms of project planning for major tournaments like the Olympics, tell us about that, because that is a massive, massive sporting event. And what does the planning look like for the Olympics?
I think for me, the project planning is so essential and so often overlooked. People just think about what is it like at the tournament? What do you do at the tournament? What do you do at the Olympics, Paralympics? What does it look like? But it starts a long way from the actual event. And the planning is such a critical bit. Having a clear understanding of how you can support the athletes, how you can support their performance, how you can support their health in that environment, and then creating projects on the back of it. What are you going to prioritize? Because there's so many things that you can go after. So prioritization becomes so key. What are going to be the things that you're going to go after that can make the biggest difference with the resources that you've got as well? Because it's easily to overstretch yourself, go after too many things and not actually make a difference to anything. So project planning, prioritization become so key to get right.
And just on that then, because, you know, I'm still learning this process myself, and have you made mistakes in terms of what you prioritized and went after, and on reflection you were like, wow, that was not the right thing to be going after, and how did you learn from that?
Yeah, I think, you know, there's definitely times where I've gone into situations where I haven't prioritized some of the most basic things. I remember one of my first Six Nations with the England women's rugby team, where, you know, we prioritized so much around the individual support and what we're doing for the players, the strategies that we wanted them to implement. And then got to the hotel, and then, you know, we didn't put enough attention into the catering, and it was basically a roast dinner every day. So everything that we was putting together, planning and trying to execute, and then the food availability wasn't right. So I think then, you know, it's like, right, so performance catering needs to be a key project strand that going to go after in the future to make sure that we get that right to support what we're doing on the individual level. So I think, yeah, there's been times where I haven't got it right, gone after the wrong things. And, you know, you don't just do that as a nutritionist. Sometimes you do it as a complete performance team. And that's why I think interdisciplinary work is so key. And it's going after these projects together and going after them in a really structured way, which is really thought about with real intent prior to execution of any strategy.
Home for you with England would be St George's Park. Great setup there. Home is home, and it's great to have a base because you can set up systems and you know what you're dealing with. But how does that support for your athletes differ when you're away from home?
Yeah, and this is one of the bits I really enjoy. I love going to new places. I love meeting new people, and I love setting up systems. And I think that is one of the key things as nutritionist is to, when you get somewhere, being able to work fast, getting, whether it's a hotel, whether it's a stadium, whether it's a training ground, getting people on side, get them bought into what you're trying to do, and creating communities. A lot of the people at England football call me like the king of delegation because I've been delegating so many jobs, but I don't see it as delegation. I see it as, you know, people want to be involved. They want to support. They want to feel they're making a difference. And if you can influence people to be able to support you on your journey and what you're going after, and create these communities, get them passionate about what you're trying to do, and actually get them to feel that they're making a difference. You know, if they're in the back of the kitchen and they're just taking a little bit more time to prep something or support you with recovery shakes and all of these different things, then they feel they're part of the performance. They see it, they feel it, they watch their game, they're like, oh, I was part of their fueling strategy. I helped made that meal the day before. And then it makes things so much more doable and frees you up to do other things, more conversation time with athletes or players on the ground as well. So I definitely feel it's this piece around getting on the ground, creating communities, making people feel valued, and bringing everyone into a process they can enjoy.
Yeah, it's as you're saying that, the video for me that springs to mind is when the England under-20s won their World Cup, and then they go back to the hotel, and the chefs at the hotel are in the reception kind of partying and celebrating the fact that they've won the World Cup. Yeah. But they're in South Africa, right? So like that, for me, there highlights what you've articulated around building that community with your catering staff at hotels. And I know at the FA, that's something that, you know, even when I was there with yourself and with Dr. Chris Rosimus, we're superbly passionate about building those communities with the key stakeholders. So that probably comes into the following question in terms of, what would you say are the three most essential things that you ensure that happen when you're going into those major tournaments to make that major tournament a success from a nutrition point of view?
I think going into a major tournament, I think it's got to be safety first as well. Like, you've got to work with your team. You've got to make sure the food provision is safe, it's quality assured, and that you're not going to have any issues, because, you know, working with a number of different teams in the Olympic world, going into very unfamiliar places, countries, it's again making sure they're able to access foods they're familiar to, and just covering the fundamentals from that aspect of it. And then I think there's the bit around being true to what you said you was going to go after. So, constantly relating back to your performance plan. What are you trying to do? How are you trying to make a difference? And use it as an anchor to constantly relate into, and be prepared to be adaptable on the ground. Things change in the moment. A line that we would have used working with yourself and Dr. Chris Rosmus a number of years ago is that often the edge is in the logistics. The edge isn't always in the next cutting edge supplement or product. And that stands true. Like getting the logistics on the ground right is so key. And actually how you deliver things can make such a big difference.
Yeah.
I don't know whether that was free, but it was a summary.
Yeah, no, there's gold in there. And I mean, we've spoke about this before, haven't we? Like when you're traveling around the world with teams, yes, you're a performance nutritionist by trade and you've got the academics and we have the knowledge, but actually the logistics side of traveling around the world with teams is mental. And you almost become this like food and beverage logistics manager. Like we spoke about that quite a few times. And one thing that you touched on a little bit there was when you are overseas and having access to food that athletes are used to, they've had it before. And have you got any insight there in terms of like the struggle that you might have had, landing into a country where you might have put certain foods on a menu that you wanted, or you're after certain products and actually struggling to get access to this?
Yeah.
And what would be your advice there?
Like even seen it in like the biggest environment. So even seen it at the Olympics, where athletes haven't been able to get the foods that they want, the foods that they're familiar with, the foods that they're used to having on a day-to-day basis. And this might be because the food hall is so big that there's so many people in there that it takes a long time for them to queue to get it, or they get to their food area they're after and there isn't any of that food left. Or we've had situations where athletes are actually that famous in the athlete community that if they go there, every other athlete's asking them for an autograph. It becomes a sign and then takes them 3 hours to even try and get their food. So there are situations like that where we've come up with solutions. Right, we can build a setup, a lodge, a base outside of the village and actually take more control over it, have our own performance chefs in place which can deliver a service which is specific to their needs to be able to make a difference. And I think even in those environments, those sort of situations happen. And then there's other sports, where which the competition setup might not be so big, the budgets might not be so big to take a performance chef. And then it's like, right, what's in your area? What restaurants are in the area that you're familiar with or serve foods that are most likely and to match what you're doing performance wise, and then trying to help navigate through that. So I think it's being creative with different solutions based on the resources that you've got and the environment they're in to try and find what fits best.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And as you say that, it makes full sense of like the issue that the famous athletes might have on the sign-in situation. So, I mean, almost there as I'm thinking as a practitioner in my own role now, it's in, you've almost got to have a contingency plan for every possible situation that might arise. Because if you don't, then it could crumble a little bit, couldn't it? And in that situation, someone not eating for 3 hours over a lunchtime is a major tournament's not ideal. In terms of the food and traveling and being at these major tournaments, as I say this, have you got a story that stands out where, oh my God, we got that wrong, and this was a big car crash, and what is that story and how did you deal with it on the ground and with it in the hotel or major tournament?
I've got so many stories where you think you're constantly learning, you're constantly refining things, and I never forget times where you just where you've got in my early days where you got the menus wrong, and then you have this massive roast dinner coming out match day -1 when I was with the England women's rugby team. I remember another time with the England men's team, it was the Six Nations before an Ireland game, relatively new coming into the job. Me and Professor Graham Close were changing a lot of the menus up, making them a lot more performance focused. And we took these chocolate biscuits of a match day minus one menu, having no relevance of the significance of these chocolate biscuits. And then I looked at my phone on the Saturday. I think I was doing a talk somewhere actually. And I had a couple of players just like calling me, ringing me, and I'm just like looking at my watch at this. I never wear a watch now when I'm doing a podcast or anything. And it was just buzzing away. And I thought, what was all that about? And then I looked at all my messages after, and it was like, where are the chocolate biscuits? Where's this? Where's that? And there was a massive outrage that the chocolate biscuits had gone on this match day -1. And then going into Penny Hill that next Monday, was like the biggest fillings in the building. So yeah, definitely learned that if you are changing menus, then to actually think things through, not just always from a performance perspective, but what the players, athletes, what's really important to them, or what traditions might be as well. Because otherwise, you can find yourself in a tricky situation.
Yeah, and what's funny about that now, Mike, is that story still lives on. Where I remember when I started at England Rugby, the start of this year, Graham said to me, he was like, mate, one bit of advice. Do not touch the chocolate biscuits. So that's brilliant. And I think what you've touched on there is that food is mood, and it is culture, it's religion, it's tradition, isn't it? And right there, it's a tradition at England Rugby, and you do not go near that tradition.
You don't go near the chocolate biscuit.
So look, performance nutrition leading into major events is critical, and we get so passionate about how we can directly impact performance for major events, Olympic Games, World Cups, Euros. After these major events where athletes might have been dialed in so much, do you then just kind of let them eat what they want? Would you encourage that? Would you say to them, look, just have a couple of weeks where you just act like a normal human again and be around the family? And is that something that you talk about with the athletes, or is it just once they've finished a major tournament, they crack on?
Yeah, I think there's this big piece, and the psychology teams that I work with do a lot better job of this than what I do. But there's definitely this bit about decompression and then reintegration into life after these major tournaments, because you are in this bubble where everything's provided for you. You've got so many different emotions going on, and we talk about this time of just whether it's 2 weeks or so, just not thinking about sport, not thinking about this, just reconnect back with your family, with your friends, focus on different things, and the food side of it will look after itself. Just take that time just to reintegrate, reconnect with people, and do the things that are even more important than what you've actually done at the major event. So there's definitely a piece of that where I won't be following athletes up in the 2 weeks after major tournaments, chasing them to make sure that they're doing certain things. It's let them take ownership. You always hope that all the fundamental principles that you get across to the athletes that you work with, that they constantly want to eat well, they know how to enjoy food, and you can make really amazing food really, really healthy and really enjoy it as well. So you always hope there's a little bit of that, but you've got to enjoy yourself as well. You've got to celebrate the victories as well. Always a big believer in celebrating these sorts of moments as well. And people have different ways of celebrating, and sometimes they might not always class as what we see as the healthiest.
I love that. Question for you, because I experienced this myself on the summer tour. When you go into these major tournaments and it's breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, buffet, do you put weight on?
There's times that I do, but I think I get into my training when I'm away as well. Like I've started getting into a lot more running. I like to eat well. I enjoy eating healthy food. So there's definitely times that I have, and then I think I've just checked in with myself over times as well, and just like, I can't do this every time because it's it's not where I want to be. So there's definitely times I've experienced, but really got into place of just enjoying my training, creating a community within our support group as well, who we want to be healthy, we want to sleep well. I'm massively into not just how we support the players, but how we can support our staff team as well. There's times where we're away for 6 weeks at a time, for instance. So how can we support each other as colleagues? We've got so much knowledge and skill set within the team, whether that's in strength and conditioning, physio, psychology. I think we're high performance too. So let's support ourselves. Let's give ourselves the best chance of being, not just surviving these tournaments, but thriving in these tournaments, so we can deliver the best version of ourselves for the athletes as well. Yeah,
that's so important. I'm really happy you touched on that, because it's that's something I learned. That was the first time I've been away at a major summer tour, 6 weeks, other side of the world, and I put weight on. Training wasn't the best, sleep wasn't the best, and it's definitely something I've reflected on to say, as a practitioner, how do I be the best version of myself to then serve the athletes to the best of my ability? So Mike, thanks so much for discussing everything to do with major tournaments today. Final question from me would be, what would be your top 3 tips for aspiring performance nutritionists that want to get into our industry and have a great career?
I think getting into the industry is, your chances of doing well is when you've got good people around you. So having good people around you, having mentors that support you, challenge you, and help you grow is key. And I think once you do that, we work so much together as a team than as an individual. That will help escalate your career and your preparation for every major tournament that you ever go to. I think that will be key. My next piece will be around plan things. Don't underestimate the impact that good planning can have. Really think about the logistics, really prioritize what performance questions that you're going after, and relate back to the practical solutions around that. How are you going to make a difference on the ground? How are you going to do it? How are you physically going to do it? What does it look like? What does it feel like for the athlete? And my third bit becomes this piece around, athletes are humans, and have that at the center of what you do. Yeah. Be a good person. Take the time to get to know them. Take your time to relate to them. There's not always going to be times where they want to talk about nutrition, or it's not their priority. They have so much going on in their careers, and not just their careers, but their life. Yeah. And be aware of that. So know when to get your messages across, and do that in a good way as a good human.
Yeah, that's superb. And that last bit there about building trust, isn't it? And building that rapport is absolutely imperative. So look, Mike, that was amazing today. Thank you so much for joining us. I, for one, have learned so much from you, and in particular the major tournaments and how to survive and thrive at those major tournaments. But look, just want to say thanks for joining us, and really enjoyed that.
Thank you.